You are watching TGZ TV.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Industry, where we get to speak to individuals who are all across the entertainment industry as they delve into their careers and give you an insight of the industry from their perspective.
From a life of crime in the streets of London to CEO of one of the most prominent media houses in Zambia, David Kazadi takes us into his journey of becoming a filmmaker and entrepreneur as he gives us his perspective on the industry.
Hi, David. Welcome.
How you doing, Ethel? You okay?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good. It's a Friday. I'm a bit tired. Can't wait for the weekend, but I'm good. I'm
Yep,
generally
I know
good.
the feeling. I know the feeling. It's like Friday. It's like you're just ready to rest, right?
I'm telling you. And the worst part is, obviously, I only wear a suit when I have a meeting. So I had a bunch of meetings today. So it's a Friday filled with meetings.
All suited and booted.
All suited and booted, but like I'm done now. No more meetings. Now it's
You're
just
done?
all production stuff. Yeah, I'm done. It was all early stuff.
Obviously, David, we have you here on Industry to talk about the industry, and we would like to obviously find out about your perspective of the industry as you've kind of delved into it. And the last few years have been quite, a whirlwind for you, should I say, a roller coaster of a journey for you, because you've just been going from strength to strength to strength, building up Kazadi Films. But obviously, before Kazadi Films was even an idea, would like to know how you found yourself in the industry, what your grassroots level was, and also what it is that kind of got you into wanting to get into the film industry. Is it something that you always wanted to do as you were a child?
No, so in the beginning, I never knew. I didn't even know there was a film industry from the very beginning. What did I study first? I went to study law because my mom's a lawyer, and I thought, I don't want to be a doctor like my dad, so I want to be, maybe I'll do law. I don't know if I made that choice trying to rebel against my dad's wishes, or I genuinely was interested in law. I would never know. So I studied law. Then at some point I realized it wasn't for me. This is a college level, so I dropped out of law. Then my dad was disappointed, like, African parents, you're either a doctor or a lawyer or you're a failure. So, I became the latter. I became the failure in as far as my dad was concerned. So then he's like, try something else. You can't just be sitting there doing nothing. So then I went to business school, or studied business. So we took my business A-levels. And I liked business for a bit. Then I dropped out after 2 years. Then it was one of those ones where, now I'm just sort of taking the mickey, because that's like, how you constantly dropping out of things, like, you're in this country, we brought you in this country to make sure you do something, you make something of yourself, but you're not really trying to make anything of yourself. So I was like, okay, cool, let me see if I can see this thing through and just sort of get out of it. So I in the third year, which was obviously my final year before I went off to uni, because I was always a musician, so I make music, I sing, and I play the piano and all that stuff. I needed the music video done for my song at the time, because back then Channel U was popping and everyone was putting all their songs on Channel U. So I was like, if I'm gonna put a song on Channel U, then like all of that. So I asked the head of the media course at that time to if she had students who could record my music video as part of their module or whatever it is, and very rare. And she's like, no, they've already picked their projects, and they can't just jump on your project last minute. So then, being who I am and was at the time, I said, all right, cool, how about you shoot it then? She looked at me like, this guy must be crazy. What do you mean? I'm like, that's not what I do. So then I managed to convince her to shoot it somehow. She shot the music video for me using some of her students and sort of made it some sort of classroom exercise. She did on a green screen. And obviously, I'm not a major student, but I looked cool in front of my friends, because they're like, oh my God, David got us a gig, we're shooting videos and very rare. Then when it was all done, she's like, so I'm like, when am I going to get it? Because, I didn't know much. I just thought, once she shot it, give me the thing, I put it up, and, Channel U accepts it. But then she's like, no, the actual music video gets done now. So I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you have to edit it. And, you can imagine someone who has no idea about how the industry works. All of these are foreign concepts. So I'm like, okay, cool. Can you do it? She's like, no, I can't edit it for you. That's the part that you have to do for yourself. I'm like, I've never done this editing thing.
Right.
And she's like, I'll show you. So she sat me down in front of the old Mac. I don't know if you remember, like the big Macintosh, and it had and so she said, this button does this, and this button does that, and this button does this. And yeah, go ahead, edit. Literally, that was my introduction to film.
That was it?
Yeah, because I was so passionate about getting the music video out, not the film.
Right.
I was passionate about my music video and trying to prove a point to my team that I was like, it has to work, because I told them we shot, being loud, I told everyone there's a music video that's coming out. So then I sat there and I started editing stuff. Then I quickly realized that performances were rubbish. I mean, now I know their performances, but like back then I just thought, why do we not look like how these music video people look?
Videos look. It was basically low budget. It was low budget.
So I quickly started learning the art of, sometimes the performance won't always be good, and you have to make sure the performance is good. And I started understanding how, if you take a piece from this wide shot and a piece from this mid shot, all of a sudden you feel different about it. So I started understanding the sort of emotion of editing. I was in love with it, because I was like, this is magic, because I took a piece where my performance was really bad and I just meshed it with a piece where my performance was really good, and boom, like it's something else. So I was like, okay, cool, I think I like this. So
that is quite fascinating.
Home. Yeah.
And here's the thing that I'm intrigued though, because obviously for the most part, many people know you for being a filmmaker, and a director, producer. But the music element of it, you have mentioned it in a couple of interviews here and there, but you've never really put it out there like that. So I want you to go back a little bit. How did you get into the music game? Like, how did you find yourself wanting to be involved and immerse yourself in music? And music, obviously, it seems being your first love.
I mean, I don't think I got into the music game. I don't have any records or stuff that out there. I think my family's very musical. Obviously, I'm a preacher's kid from both mum and dad. Both preachers. So I had no choice. I grew up having to be forced into Sunday school and the church choirs and all that stuff. I mean, what are you going to do? So, I could always sing from the moment I could speak, but it was never anything special, because everyone in the family does it. Like, everyone sings, everyone plays an instrument. So it was one of those things where you take it for granted, because you're like, yeah, this has to be normal because everybody's doing it. So even when I started doing like my what you would term my music scene, it was more of, I'm in college and I have kids who think I'm an amazing singer and they think we could create some sort of band. All right, cool, let's do this. So it wasn't like I thought, yeah, I'm going to become this. No. It was just, you're young and you find yourself in the midst of all the hype, and you think you're going to be the next, Trey Songz or what's the name? There's another guy there was a famous guy back then as well.
Jason Derulo?
No, not even, what's his name? DJ Ironic, the UK guy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, so you're thinking, yeah, I might be the next DJ or Tinchy or whatever it is. So it was that was sort of where it came from. But then I feel like the music gave birth to the film, but I'm good at the film part because of the music. Because you see, with music, it's all about rhythm. It's all about storytelling, and it's all about timing, and there are so many different elements to making sure when you're performing or you're singing something, like, people aren't bored and all that kind of stuff. Then I quickly realized that the same 1 2 3 4 or 1 2 3 1 2 3. If you apply the same to your edits, then you develop a certain rhythm that keeps people glued or not glued onto your shows. So before I even went to film school, I was editing with music rules. And so people would watch my stuff and they'd be like, that's so good. Like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I was just following rhythm. And they're like, how do you know about rhythm? And I'm just like, it's music.
And so obviously, obviously you kind of you made a seamless transition by the looks of things, because of your love for music, and to a degree, music and film and television kind of go hand in hand. You can't literally have one without the other, if that makes sense, because in order for artists to have their music out there on a visual aspect, you need someone who can actually understand filmmaking to a degree, or at least have a vision for it and have an understanding of how to capture frames, etc. And then obviously with movies and television, you can't just have dialogue without music in the background, without a soundtrack to kind of go with it. So I feel like you kind of made a natural transition from that to the other. And so once you got into having to, really get your hands into editing and filmmaking, what steps did you take after that kind of led to you being able to go to film school? And then after film school, what was the plan afterwards? Like, did you work on additional projects in between before eventually making your trip to Zambia?
I dropped out of I dropped out of business school. That's sort of how it worked. So I went back and I told mom and dad, I don't think this business thing is for me, so I'm going to drop out. I think I'm going to do film. And, back then, they didn't even know what film was. So I had to, convince them, So whilst I was learning about the film industry, I was learning because I had to convince my parents to let me go ahead and do that as a course instead. So this is media studies. So somehow, I don't know, call it luck, grace, or somehow they just said, you know what, whatever. Do it, but just make sure you come back here with a degree. That was rule number one. So I dropped out. Then I had to do another 3 years to get my A levels in media, and then from that point, because obviously now I have no A levels. So then at that point, after that, then I went to film school. In film school, because I went to Staffordshire before I went to NFTS. They encouraged us to, from year one, they encouraged us to make sure we get on board of, get industry connections, get to know people in the industry, work on projects and so on and so forth. And so I was that guy, when they say the media stores open, I'm booking everything, all the lights, all the cameras, all of this, and I'm like literally walking, getting on the train to go back just so I can shoot something, just so I can learn. And a few producers, musicians, from my local area wanted me to shoot their stuff and stuff like that. A few people from the church also wanted me to shoot their stuff. And so I basically improved on my skills organically because I was immersed in doing it. But also I kind of feel like part of the reason I was doing the most was because I had a point to prove with my parents, because they said to me, you have to be successful in this thing because of all the different things you've dropped out. And you say you're passionate about this, so show us that you're going to be successful. So that kind of played a part as well.
Right. Oh, wow. And so when you finished film school and you got your degree in that, so what plans did you have? Obviously, because now your parents are proud. Finally, he's come home with a degree. And I'm sure, being African parents, they think, okay, so now how are you going to start making money from it? Yeah.
The natural question was, what's next? You got a degree now? Great. Yeah. Hurrah. What are you going to do next?
Now what?
And so my degree was so good in that the final year, one of the final year projects that we had was called Design Future, which is a 5-year plan of what you're going to do with yourself after you graduate. And, until then, I had never needed to think about my life until the next day or next month or next week. So now these guys are telling me you can either fail this course or pass this course based on you planning what you're going to do with yourself next.
Right.
And I obviously, by then I had worked with a lot of, UK artists, UK people. And I knew very early on that I can do work in the UK and make a lot of money. But I'm really not going to make much of a change because, in the UK, there's a million David Kazadis. There's a million, filmmakers, even better David Kazadis. And so I always knew that, I will become one other sardine in a massive ocean. So people might like what I do. People might appreciate what I do, but it's not going to change a thing. And I've always, because when I left Zambia, I was 6 or 7, I'm not sure, like within that. So I always had the urge, or I wanted to come back to Zambia for one thing or the next. And I thought, wait a second, I've never seen a Zambian movie. You know what I mean? Like I had seen Nigerian films, I had seen Ghanaian films, but I had never seen a Zambian movie at all. And I was like, so then obviously I got into my research and I was like, okay, if Zambians aren't making films, what other countries in Zambia aren't making films? So then I, you know, that became my base for my research. Then I quickly realized, well, there's not really much of an industry in Africa, or like certain countries in Africa. So why not go and set one up? Because one of my case studies was Walt Disney, who I'm immensely inspired by. And he obviously, when he set up, you know, Disneyland, started with one project, and then one project grew into more projects and more projects. And I was like, this is incredible. And not only that, not only does Zambia, or you know, the many parts of Africa not have a film industry, but they don't have theme parks, they don't have this. And I was like, oh my Lord, I'm getting excited. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go home and this is what I'm gonna do. So then when I got back, I realized going home isn't just a matter of packing your bags and, you know, getting on a plane and going home. Like, there's so much more, you know. So my mom and dad weren't going to give me no money, so I had to work. I had to work because they were like, you said you're an entrepreneur. Show us the money, innit?
Show us the money.
Like my mom.
So what did you have to do? Like, what happened in terms of like, because obviously it's not a secret that it's not easy to make money in Zambia. People do make it, you know, and that shouldn't be mistaken, but it's not easy, you know, for people to actually get to a place where they can make money that will sustain them in the entertainment industry. You know, people can easily make money if they're working in the corporate industry in Zambia very easily. But like when you are working in entertainment, it's a whole different ballgame where for the most part, a lot of people who work in entertainment in Zambia have to always have some kind of side job of some sort to kind of sustain themselves, pay their rent, put food on the table, because entertainment literally doesn't pay, in my opinion, what I feel people deserve to be paid. You know, so how did you manage to make the transition or save up money, or, you know, how did you manage to kind of do that? So
initially what I had done is, while in the UK, I had set up the company, did all the registration. So Kazadi Films was operational in my mum's attic, but to the rest of the world, it was a big conglomerate of a company. And you know, there was a bid that came out, and it's funny. Like I've actually got videos of this, because I remember one time, because after uni, I went through, you know, post-uni depression, where, you know, you think you know what you're doing with yourself, but you don't, because this is the first time in your life where your entire life is totally in your control. Ain't no teachers telling you to hand in assignments. Like you wake up, and if you choose to do nothing, nothing will happen. So I was depressed, you know, like a whole year. Then I picked myself up after that. You know, because it was a crazy year. Then I vlogged it, you know, and I said,
hello world, my name be David Kazadi. I am the owner and founder of Kazadi Films, as you can see on my t-shirt. Today is the first entry of my official blog entitled How I Became a Millionaire, which is a journey throughout my life, and you follow me on how I become a millionaire. Currently, I live in my mum's attic with my two brothers and a third one. We share a room. There's where I hang all my clothes. So, you know, it's not really the best of situations. However, I have faith and believe that I'm going to become a millionaire one day. And this basically is the journey how it all happens. It might inspire someone, it might not. Who knows, man? This video could be worth a few millions in a few years to come. So yeah, this is it. And life begins.
And my little brother was there, like, because we're all sharing the attic now. You know, I've come back from uni, and, you know, we're in my mom's attic, and there's sort of, because there's a big family. So when anyone comes home, like, there's no room. So we had to make room. There was an area where my sort of computer that I had bought back at uni through with student finance and all them things there. That was basically Kazadi Films' office. And then next to it was my little bed where I'd sleep. And then on top as well, I'd hang my clothes, because the wardrobe was filled with my two brothers' clothes. In fact, three brothers' clothes. So it was mad. So I filmed that and I closed it, and I'm like, cool. Like, now that I've done this, it's got to work, because there's no way I'm not going to make it work. And I think a month or two after that, I got my first job as a cinematographer on some feature film. I walked in, and they paid me some really good money, and I was like, whoa.
So money is good here. I must say, when you get it, it's actually good. That cannot be denied.
It was good. It was healthy. It made the whole year of me doing nothing seem like, yeah, I'm nice. So I took that money, came back home with it, shared it with my dad, and he was happy because he couldn't understand how a person can make so much money to film stuff, because at that point he still thought I was just a camera operator, and I didn't want to get into the whole
even with your degree,
because he'd be like, you are a cameraman, you work in McDonald's as a cameraman, and I say, but it's like African. I think it's not even African parents. I think it's most parents in general. Like, I just feel like because they're so used to the conventional route of things, sometimes it's hard to see what they've never seen or understand what's never been done. Like, and I'm the first filmmaker in my family. Like, there was no filmmaker before me. There probably will be filmmakers after me, but like, I'm the first. So when they would ask me to give them a reference of anyone who's done film and successful in a family, I had none. So it's like, how are you going to be someone who's doing something with no reference? So I get it. I'm older, wiser now, so I understand. If I have a son and my son tells me, I don't know what careers are going to be born in the future. Let's assume he says, I want to be a pipe blower. Maybe that's a new way to monetize things. I'll be like, are you crazy? What, you're gonna be a what? So I get
it won't make sense to you, because of what you used to.
You know what I mean? Because can you imagine, like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have imagined that YouTubing would have been a career that people make money from. Do you know what I mean?
No.
So like, the world is constantly changing, constantly evolving, and so I now give my parents slack for not having believed in me when I wanted them to, because to be fair, they didn't have any reason to.
Yeah.
So made some money, then that opened more doors. Then I did a few music videos that made a lot of money. I was shocked at how much money I was making for music videos. Then I got called another feature film, but I wasn't a cinematographer on this one. I was called to be a second assistant director. Okay. And the only reason I could do not second assistant director, second AC, second assistant camera operator, and the only reason I could do a lot of these different things was because when I was in uni, I was the guy who was literally practicing all the different roles on the film set. And for me, it was just for knowledge's sake, but then it sort of paid after when I needed to make money, because whatever job would come, I'd be like, yeah, I'm qualified to do it. So I did a bunch of these different jobs. I only got to direct my first commercial, I think 6 to 7 months in. It didn't pay as much as the other jobs, but I needed to get something on my CV for directing. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it, and just so I can build onto it. So then obviously that spiraled. So now I had money in the bank. So the company was actually running. So got myself a little office, had a few people, which were mostly family members, cousins, sisters, whatnot. And yeah, it was working. Like, we were making money. So then my uncle used to come and visit. And when he would come and visit, he would be driving like push cars, like cars that I wouldn't be able to buy. And I was making decent money, but I wouldn't be able to buy those cars. And I'm like, how are you driving expensive cars and you work in Africa? You know what I mean?
Right.
I was baffled. And he's like, Africa isn't as you see it in movies or how they represent it. Like, we have money. We're not all on, running now with lions and tigers. And I just thought it's one of those things that people just say, because again, I left when I was young, and I was raised in Zambia, which is village, or was village. Now it's not village anymore.
So you were never really in the city to see how city life actually works.
I wasn't a city boy, so I didn't really get to know what the city, Lusaka was, and because I was a villager. So
did you not get to visit Zambia in between?
I was young, so when I would visit, the difference between me moving from one place to another place, because you have to remember, Lusaka is also developed. Lusaka now isn't Lusaka that it was back then. So I remember we would visit places with more people and a few more cars, but it wasn't what it is right now. Does that make sense? Right. So it still wasn't anything to write home about. Right. So then I think it took him 5 years to convince me to come back home. And then, one day I just said, you know what? Okay, cool. This is after 5 years. I said, you know what? I'm going to come. I'm going to be there for 6 months, just to basically study things. And then, I'll come back. I'll come back to the UK, and if it works, it works. It doesn't work, it doesn't work. I've been here for the past 2.5 years now.
Wow. So when you initially went with the idea of obviously staying for 6 months and kind of trying out for 6 months, I just want to touch on obviously Zambia being the way it is. Some people have kind of made mention that, there was your uncle who owns Hot Media, okay,
Yeah.
which is kind of like a company that has multiple radio stations, television, etc. Right? So it's
Yeah.
literally already established. And then there was another, I think, uncle of yours as well, who unfortunately
My cousin,
passed on.
yeah.
Was your cousin?
Zach. Yeah.
Who passed on. My condolences for that, by the way.
Thank you.
And so a number of people have touched on the fact that because of the passing of your cousin, you were basically put in place of him. So they're kind of saying, oh, because he's been fortunate. And a lot of them tend to use the wording, oh, he's been fortunate, or he's lucky because, that's already there and the money's already there. And so he just came to something that was already built and he was able to kind of build Kazadi Films. So what is your say in people having that perception? Because how it reads to someone who's listening to that conversation is they're basically saying, if it wasn't for this, Kazadi Films wouldn't be the way it is right now. So what is your say when it comes
here's
to
the thing.
that kind of...
What I tell people say stuff. I mean, I don't really tell them anything because I just find it to be annoying to have to explain stuff that but it's, anyway. But I'm gonna make it clear. When I left London, I had money. Do you know what I mean? Like I was working. I had the company was running. My uncle didn't bring me here to necessarily make money. He brought me here or asked me to come here because he wanted the same skills and same things I was doing in the UK for me to do them in Zambia and have more of an impact. Okay.
Right.
Now, remember, I mentioned in the beginning that when I left uni, I had already had this entire plan of how I'm going to come to Africa. I had just put that plan to the side, completely forgotten about it because, things were all right. So when I came, both my uncle and my cousin were both running Hot Media, Hot FM, which is the radio station and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So what they facilitated, and what sort of made what I would say, is what people are exaggerating or I don't know what the correct terms would be, but like the fact that they already had a thriving business, they already had houses, and they already had a platform to advertise, made it much easier for me to come into a system and sort of piggyback off of that system. Does that make sense? So it wasn't necessarily a question of here's money, David, go crazy. No. It's you've got skills and some money, bring it in. We've got buildings and this and that. We're going to bring this in. Let's create a business. So it was a partnership. Okay.
Right.
So Kazadi Films is not Hot FM, is not Kwitu FM, or any of the other businesses that were in the Hot Media Group. Kazadi Films was a company of its own. Does that make sense?
Right.
In which I'm founder and CEO. Now, being founder and CEO, I'm not the sole shareholder. Like my cousins and my uncles who are in the business also own shares. And anyone who knows business understand that you don't just own share because it's because of blood. Like shares aren't given like you would give food. You know what I mean? Like you have to buy your shares and earn your right in that company. So that's where the exchange was. It was a question of, this is what David is bringing. This is the value that we're bringing. Let's put it together and work out what we can do. But now, that decision was only made after my initial 6 months. So the 6 months I came in were just for me. I basically came on an extended holiday to get to know the motherland. That's what it was. But then, being the creative that I am, I thought, you know what? While we're here, let's meet some people, shoot some stuff, and basically test the ground, because I got reminded of the plan. So then, when Black Dollar came into the mix, I mean, I'm sure you know how the Black Dollar story came through. Then the entire family and some of the people who aren't family members decided, why don't we make this a company? Why don't we establish a company here? We understand there's a UK version of the company. Why don't we have a Zambian version of the company, establish it, grow it, and then you can be working between the Zambia and the UK. And the sort of there's an opportunity for value and skill exchange. Like, I have no problem with that. So doing a movie in Zambia is very different to doing a movie in the UK, because there's no infrastructure, there's no industry and all that kind of stuff. And so because we didn't have anyone who would be like, here's the money, go shoot your stuff, we had to raise the capital ourselves. That's where they came into play, because now they had to pull money from this business, pull money from that business to be able to create a budget for Black Dollar, so that when Black Dollar does do well, they get their money back. So,
but which is standard, if truth be told, that's actually standard procedure anyways.
That's
when it comes to filmmaking. Filmmakers actually have to go and find funders for their film. They have to go pitch it to many, many people so that they can get the funding they need. And that's why not all films that are great make it to the forefront, because the funding is just never available, because it's not cheap to put together a film. You know, so that part is kind of like, you know, almost self-explanatory. But for those obviously who don't understand how the business side of the film industry works, and that's literally what it is. You know, you have to find investors.
That's why I don't really get into all the conversations with people like, it's because of this and because of that. I'm just like, listen, it's one thing to understand film, but it's also another thing to understand the film business. And so if you don't understand it, you don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense.
Because I think it was important to kind of touch on that, you know, the hearsay about like, because obviously how it really is that, and how I see it is that had you not had the talent and the experience, right, to be able to pull off putting together the creativity that you're now putting together now in Zambia, even if they were to purchase shares,
all the high-end cameras,
it would have been basically any investment is a risk, right? So that would have been a risk. That was a risk they were willing to take, which means had you not been able to deliver, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Because there wouldn't be a journey to kind of like base this whole conversation on. Do you see what I mean? And so
because
I thought
they would have lost money. I would have gotten the next plane to London, and life would have been done. It's like, okay, cool, we tried it. It was an expensive holiday. Let's move on with our lives. But
expensive holiday.
An
expensive
the reason
holiday.
we're having this conversation is because the risk made sense. Do you know what I mean? So, but I want to touch on one thing though. So my cousin, you know, God bless his soul, passed away sometimes last year. And so how the dynamics of Hot FM, this is specific to Hot FM. He was the CEO and sort of founder of Hot FM, while my uncle, Oscar, was the chairman and sort of investor to Hot FM with other people. And so when he passed on, what he left as a void was Hot FM, not Kazadi Films.
Not Kazadi
so I'm trying
Films.
to say, because Kazadi Films was already filled. Kazadi, by then we had already done Black Dollar, and the company was already making its own money. So the idea of the Hot Media Group was created after that came way after, when we realized, okay, we have 3 radio stations, now we have a film company, now we have a TV station. That's what makes the group. And so me having been appointed Hot FM CEO alongside Kazadi Films wasn't because I'm family. It was because the board decided that during this time, the best person to be CEO was me. And that was based on, you know, so many different things. You know, is he smart enough? What has he done with Kazadi Films in the 1 year? Because like people don't realize, Kazadi Films has only been in the industry for 2 years and a half. Like it's a baby company. So when the board of directors see what we've been able to do in such a short period of time for one company, of course they trust me to be able to repeat the same for another company, and that's it. So it wasn't, you know, he died, so, you know, he passed it on, because he would have passed it on to his kids.
That's true. That's where we have to avoid the system of nepotism. Where you just give people a job for the sake of, because they're blood, but they don't have the skills, and you're literally leaving somebody else on the sidelines who's actually capable of actually pulling off the job. You know?
Absolutely.
Coming up next.
It's the same version.
Yeah, it's the same one.
Now I know why I felt the way I felt.
Yeah, it was rubbish. It was bad.
I didn't like it very much.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
So are you telling me that if you were to film Black Dollar with Idris Elba, you'd have to put about 20 mil, give or take?
Yeah, give or take.
For him, and then another 20 mil plus for the actual production.
And everything. I'm really looking for genuine, meaningful connections, which is odd, because when I was broke, I was looking for it, but nobody was looking to give it to me. Yeah, and you know, walking around, and I probably got a knife in my pocket or two, and you know, when I'm walking through your block, you know, you're all basically holding your handbags. I was that guy. So to see me in a suit.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna pause for a second. We need a pause. So I just want to touch on, you mentioned obviously in the 6 months, you know, before Black Dollar came about, what projects did you work on in order to kind of like raise the funds, raise the capital that you kind of needed afterwards?
In Zambia?
Yes. In those 6 months.
We didn't raise funds. We didn't raise funds in Zambia per se.
Okay.
So most of the funds that we got in Zambia was our own cash injection. So
Right.
my uncle put in X amount, my cousin put in X amount, I put in X amount, and then there's another guy who's a partner of the business who put in X amount. So it was basically money from our own savings and pockets.
Your own savings. Okay. And what projects did you actually work on in that, when you were testing out the fields, you know, testing things out?
So
That ended
we
up obviously
worked.
coming from 6 months to 2 years.
Yeah, we worked on. There was what do you call it? It's not a reality show. It was. No, it is a reality show slash experiment. It was called Blind Attraction, which people see now. That was like the first project. Yeah, that was the first project I did because I was trying to work out. I did it as a test to try and find out what the Zambian skill set is where, you know, film is concerned. So I basically hired anyone who would want to be hired, and we shot it. Then I hated it because it was so bad.
So the version that we actually see right now online is not the same version, or is it the same one?
version. No, that's the same version. That's
it's the same version.
Yeah, it's the same one.
Now I know why I felt the way I felt.
Yeah, it was rubbish. It was bad.
I didn't like it very much.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
I did not like it very much.
And you know that when we put it out, I was cringing, but it was So anyway, Zambia has this thing where there's a lot of copyright issues. So there was a certain company that literally plagiarized the whole concept. I'm like, yeah, and this is something I told them about when I was shooting and stuff. So
they plagiarized the entire, what, including the title?
They changed the title and called it Blind Date, but same colors, same themes, all of that. So
I came across that the other day.
Yeah, so I was like,
but then again, they named it Blind Date, but Blind Date exists in the UK.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, Blind Date has been around for a really long time. If you ever knew of Cilla Black, the legend, TV host, she was literally the queen of Blind Date. I think I even remember the theme song to Blind Date here in the UK. And so the concept of having one person on the other side, there's a board, but they used to literally have like 3 people on the other side.
Yeah, I remember that.
He would ask them questions and they would answer. Yeah, you remember that, right?
But you see, the overall concept of blind dating is not original. So I can let them do that.
But the title Blind Date, like that, literally naming it Blind Date, like literally the show here was called Blind Date. So crazy. When I saw that title, I said, why are they naming it like literally identical to the UK show? So that's interesting. So they basically plagiarized the UK show and then plagiarized your concept of how
my take on it.
That is very interesting.
So I was like, okay, cool. We might as well launch ours before people say we copied them when we start doing it. So we had to release what we had.
Names?
Say again?
Are we going to name names?
No, we're not going to name names.
We're not going to name names.
No, not at all. Not at all. But they know themselves.
They know themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we're not enemies. I think we're actually good friends. Right. It was funny that I saw that. So I was like, because I'm big on copyright and I want to sort of protect my intellectual property by all cost. And so I figured, cool, everybody can shoot whatever they want to do. But if we were to then after shoot, a better version of Blind Attraction and then put it out, people will be like, oh my God, they're so not creative. They copied these guys. Right. So at that point, my hands were tied. I had to release it just so it's in the public eye before they release theirs, so that even when we do decide to go into proper production for Blind Attraction, people don't think we copied someone else. So that was the only reason we put it out. Otherwise, it would have still lived on my hard drive.
That's fair enough. And you've kind of touched on the whole copyright, right? You're strong on copyright, intellectual property. How have you found that kind of faring in terms of in Zambia? Obviously, I don't think it's necessarily that people are just really into it, but it's more ignorance and lack of education and knowledge on how copyright and intellectual property works. And I think it also is not helped by the fact that the arts and entertainment industry as a whole, it's not really regulated as it should be, you know. How have you found navigating that and ensuring that your intellectual property obviously stays secure, and that if people were to reutilize it in some way, shape, or form in a capacity that basically is in breach of copyright, intellectual property? Have you had any of those situations, and how have you handled that to safeguard yourself?
I mean, first thing I do with anything, any project that we think, oh, this is going to be good, we put it out. So whether we're putting out a flyer, we're putting out a poster, or whatever it is. And people always thought we were weird. Like, for instance, when we came up with the name Black Dollar for the movie, I was like, okay, good. Let's put a casting call out with the name Black Dollar. Let's let it go crazy. So that, because it's much harder for people to plagiarize something that's in the public domain. And that's one way I found to be able to work around Zambian. So you will find, like last year, we had this incredible series called The Secret Life of a Slave Queen, which obviously we're now taking into production this year. But as soon as I came up with the title and the concept, I was like, we're shooting a trailer, we're putting that out there so that no one can come and sort of claim it or anything. So that's made people afraid. But that comes from in the past when I came, before we did Blind Attraction, we were pitching ideas and concepts to an unnamed television station, and you would find they'll be like, yeah, we've rejected your concept because we have something similar. And I'm like, it's impossible to have similar shows to every show that I pitched to you. Then the next time you sit on TV and it's basically your concept from A to Z.
But yeah, that's literally what they do. That's literally, and I know the company you're talking about.
On their portal, they say you're basically, I forgot how to phrase it, but there's like a little thing that you have to click that says you're sending these ideas at your own risk because we might have similar ideas. So then I'm like, okay, cool. That's how they found the way around stealing people's ideas.
That is the loophole. Unfortunately, and we actually might as well just touch base on it. When it comes to dealing with bigger companies, bigger studios that operate in Africa, how have you found the fact that, because obviously from my observations, I feel like they exploit, for lack of a better term, a lot of the creatives. And I feel that is why in places like Zambia, creatives are suffering financially, which is quite surprising considering the popularity of some of the shows that are put out there, you know, some of the projects that are put out there in comparison to even the Western shows. Some of them are actually even better to a degree, but yet the talent that's behind it, from production, etc., don't seem to be making even anything close to what their Western counterparts are making, or even their South African or Nigerian counterparts. Because I believe a lot of the companies, obviously, that are formed, they do favor a lot of South Africans and a lot of, you know, Nigerians. So they tend to get paid what they deserve to be paid compared to other African countries. How have you found having to kind of deal with those companies, and what is your take in terms of a lot of these companies not really being owned by Black people, by Black indigenous Africans, and yet exploiting Black talent? And there's Black companies out there that can actually do a much better job, but are not given a fair chance, especially when it comes to getting funding, etc.
I think exploitation is firstly a worldwide problem, because even while I was in the UK, you know, because I did some work with, you know, Channel 4, ITV, Sky, I always knew that if I'm pitching as a sort of minority producer, there's a certain budget that I'm going to get that's different to, you know, a Caucasian producer. So I'm not foreign to the concept of, you know, being a minority and, you know, dealing with minority-based issues. And, you know, I came to quickly realize that, you know, TV stations, distribution companies, studios, and blah, 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 they're capitalists. So they're doing this to be able to make money. And so if they can pay as little as possible to get as much as they can, they will opt for that option. Like, they're not in the business to make me rich. So I became really aware of that even in the UK. When I came here, I found the same system, just a bit more exaggerated in that.
Right.
Firstly,
a bit more.
Yeah, it's so much more, because, you know,
so much more. Yeah, not a bit.
because
not a bit more, a lot more
in
exaggerated.
the UK, a project that will cost me, you know, £250,000 to shoot one pilot, I'll have to shoot 13 episodes here for less than £100,000. So then you're like, that's not going to work. How, like, you know, especially if you're using your UK brain to think and work out all the numbers, you're like, that's not going to work. And you know, I think that's what took long because I was trying to like get my head around how they do things with so little resources and money. And then I just realized, you know, the big distributors, you know, who shan't be named, are in the business of exploiting people and, you know, using their content to make money. Because of that, most of the shows that you will get aren't top standard stuff. But then I realized that when you go to South Africa, there's a different respect when you're in South Africa. Like because they have regulations and, you know, they have systems in place that you know, govern the film sector and rules. It's a bit hard for them to it's a bit harder for them to cut the corners, but they still do cut corners because, again, they're in the business of making money and not necessarily making people rich. Now, when you bring it to Zambia as a country, and specifically where film is concerned, it's so young. Being such a young industry is not a problem because it means everything.
There's room for growth.
Yeah, everything can grow. Do you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of planting yourself at the right time and doing the right things, and over time it will grow. So one of the things that we've done at Kazadi Films, and, you know, together with all the other, you know, partnering companies, because these guys, they've been stealing our ideas, and they pretty much refused to do fair business with us for a very, very long time. So we said, okay, cool, fine, we're just going to create our own streaming platform and people watch our shows, because when it's all said and done, the people like Kazadi Films for the content that Kazadi Films is doing, not because, you know, I look nice in a blue suit. It's the content. And so if they're following the content, we just have to redirect them to where they watch the content. So now people no longer ask us about, you know, why isn't your content on TV? They're like, when are we going to get the next show? Because now we have a platform. So they're in subordination to doing great business or fair business has opened our eyes and, you know, given us opportunities to expand our business, and we're not complaining.
That's actually quite an interesting, you know, journey you've had, and an interesting take that you have, you know, on the industry. So in terms of, obviously, you've clearly planted yourself firmly in the Zambian entertainment industry, you know, and you have become literally one of the lead to go companies when it comes to TV shows and people wanting to actually work with you. What do you have in the pipeline in terms of expanding, you know, expansion and job creation and basically education and knowledge when it comes to all the other things that we've just touched on, which is obviously lack of regulation, you know, intellectual property? What have you got in plan? Have you got like a 5-year plan, pretty much like what you had at uni? Have you got something like that in place?
Yeah, I really do. So, like I said, it took a leaf out of took the whole book. No, not a page. I took Walt Disney's whole book. So Kazadi Films is obviously the first company that started all of these things, and this year we've opened Kazadi Music to sort of touch and deal with the music aspect, so that we can have our artists make music for our movies, so they make money from the movies and from the music, but the movies benefit from their music. So we're trying to do that whole Disney thing.
That's amazing.
Hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to have our Zambia's first theme park, but also I think Africa's first theme park, if my research is correct. I'm not sure. I've done some research, but not all research. That obviously will also be a place that will be birthed out of the Kazadi Junior, which is a branch of Kazadi Films that will be doing content that caters towards the young and teens and so on and so forth. So when people do come to the theme park, they'll be interacting with their favorite characters from the Kazadi Juniors, you know, franchise, so to speak. And then obviously after that, what do I want to do after that? I think that's my 5-year plan. I don't know what I'm going to do.
That's your 5-year plan.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do.
It sounds like a pretty good 5-year plan. So in terms of the films that you're actually working on, obviously you've mentioned, I think previously, that in a couple of interviews, I think you mentioned that you are planning on Black Dollar Part 2.
Yeah.
Are you already in pre-production at the moment? And who are you looking to have on it? And when should we expect a release date for that?
So Black Dollar 2 is still in pre-production. It's probably going to take the whole year to pre-produce it. I'm just hoping. I mean, I've mentioned a few big names in our previous interviews, so I'm just hoping that I could get Idris Elba. Right now, I can't afford him, but I'm hoping. I'm hoping we raise some money, and
I mean, you never know. You never know.
That's the thing.
I mean, how much does he charge?
It's expensive.
I think he might be on like I don't think he's 20 million, because I think that's Will Smith, but Idris might possibly be around the 10 million mark. So
because remember he did that Hateful Eight, so his price went.
It went up. So
not Hateful Eight. What's the new one? The Harder They Fall. Yeah.
The Harder They Fall. Oh, of course. And Netflix, and then they got that Netflix money, didn't they?
Oh.
But I don't think he's exceeding Will Smith though.
I think he's 100%.
Will Smith just did what's the one with Venus and Serena's dad? And he's been nominated.
That was an indie.
So you think he's on 20 mil? So are you telling me that if you were to film Black Dollar with Idris Elba, you'd have to put about 20 mil, give or take?
Yeah, give or take.
For him, and then another 20 mil plus for the actual
productions and everything else. Yeah, so
so you are looking at a budget of about 50 million if we were to round it up.
50 to 100 mil, because then if you're getting an Idris Elba, then you're looking at getting a Roger Deakins, as a cinematographer, and he ain't cheap. So, so whoever you're pulling, when you're pulling these big boys, you have to pull all the big boys. So it will be expensive. Anyway, it's been pre-produced, the story wise anyway, to make sure that we have something that he'd be interested in doing. We're also pre-producing. So I would say Black Dollar is in development / pre-production, but we're pre-producing A Beautiful Mess, which is going to be our first official Zambian TV series.
That's
I'm
amazing.
really excited about that one.
What's the synopsis for it?
It follows a young aspiring boxer who's trying to make it in life. Then the death of his immediate elder sister brings to light emotional family secrets, and then he quickly finds out that he was born of an incestuous relationship between his father and his sister. So
wow.
Yeah.
It's a drama. It's a drama series, a little bit dark.
But it's very, 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 very suspenseful, very dark. It deals with a lot of African taboos and sort of brings them to light. Yeah,
that's good.
Remember when I said
might you have been by any chance a little bit inspired by Divorce Club, some of the case studies that you covered in Divorce Club?
Absolutely, and I was hoping you'd pick up on that, because man,
I'm quick like that.
Remember when I came on your show, I said Divorce Club was basically preparing people's minds for something worse. So this one really delves deep into some of these issues.
That's good. That's really good, because I feel especially now with Hollywood recycling so many things, they're just giving us reboot after reboot after reboot, or sequel after sequel after sequel. We feel like we've watched everything in terms of story-wise, but the advantage I think that you have being taken from Africa and Zambia is that there's so many stories that are actually untouched that we can actually delve into. So you literally are working with a massive blank canvas. Absolutely. And that's like your oyster. You can do whatever you want, because the stories are literally endless. And these are stories that even if Hollywood were to try and touch base on it, they won't really understand it fully at grassroots level to be able to translate it the way it needs to be translated.
Absolutely.
So I think what you are doing is the first of many, and I'm actually quite excited for you that you're delving into this. I look forward to seeing who you're going to cast, and they better be good, David, because
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I look forward to that. I definitely look forward to that. And so obviously, as far as the industry, you seem to have like literally a full understanding of it. You've grasped well into it. How has it affected you as an individual, literally as David Kazadi, in terms of who you were when you were here in London, trying to find yourself and eventually finding yourself in film. And then in terms of how you conduct yourself in Zambia and the people you surround yourself, how has that affected you personality wise, lifestyle wise, love life wise? How has that affected you?
My love life is as good as zombified, isn't it? That's the biggest effect.
Not zombified. Why is that?
It's not just dead. It's turned into a zombie,
Oh,
and
stop.
it's on its way to being a mummy.
Wait a minute. What on earth would it become a mummy? Like, what the heck has happened? What happened?
There are certain things that you sacrifice along the way, which affect the person. And for me, relationships, or some relationships, especially romantic relationships, have been the hardest ones to maintain, because it's hard. Before I made money, it was hard to find a girl who wanted to be with a guy who didn't have money. Then I made money. Now it's hard to find a girl who wants to be with a guy,
for you,
me, and not the money. And so, yeah, relationships are the pits. So that's one thing that it's changed. But also it's become the one thing I aspire to getting more than anything else. Now, now that I don't have to look over my shoulder for when my next paycheck is coming from, I'm really looking for genuine, meaningful connections, which is odd, because when I was broke, I was looking for it, but nobody was looking to give it to me.
You.
Yeah, and now everybody wants to give me love, but not authentic, genuine love. So it's a mess. So that's one thing that this journey has. One of the sacrifices I've had to take or accept for being in this journey. The other thing is how it's changed me. I think positively, the positive changes are I'm a fast thinker, and I think on my feet, because I have to manage people. I mean, across the seas. Actually, I have to manage the team in the UK, then I have to manage the Zambian team, and I have to manage people at different levels of understanding, exposure, and experience. And so sometimes I have to sound really intelligent, and sometimes I don't really have to sound really intelligent. And having that balance, it's a proper skill, and it's not a skill that I ever thought. Say again?
You have to code switch.
Yeah, and it's not something I thought I had or ever needed to have until I had to have it and sort of implement it. I don't have friends. What about
friends and family?
Yeah, I don't have friends. My family is my family members are my friends. And even then, obviously, because now we're all grown up, so my brother's doing his thing, my sisters are doing their thing. We're sort of friends because we're family. So that, I think, ultimately everything else is good. The only negative that I personally have experienced, I don't know about anyone else's experience, is it becomes harder to maintain meaningful relationships. I think that's the biggest
it's never easy. It's never easy maintaining meaningful relationships, because again, everyone seems to have an ulterior motive, and it's never one that has your best interests at heart. So that can be very difficult to kind of navigate in the industry. And so as a result, that's why you find that mental health issues are kind of like quite high in the industry, because people find themselves feeling lonely and alone because they feel, they can't find people who can relate to them. Because you can have your friends and family, but if they're not in the industry with you, sometimes they don't fully get it, because they see the industry as, oh, but that's fun stuff. You shouldn't be feeling depressed about this. You shouldn't be feeling stressed, because it looks like you're just having fun. Right? So there seems to be a misunderstanding when it comes to that, and a disconnect, should I say. That's the better term to use. There's a disconnect when it comes to having a full understanding with that. And honestly, I wish I could offer advice on that, because I can't. I face the same thing. So I can't offer advice. It is the industry. It is what it is. You just have to find the people who you can literally call your people in the industry. And then when you do find them, I think those are the people that will probably be with you like for life. That's literally how it is. But overall on your journey, in terms of like, obviously I think you've had, in my opinion, a pretty decent journey. Even if you've dropped out of uni twice, You've had a pretty decent journey. At the end of the day, sometimes you have to kiss a number of frogs in order to find your prince, so to speak. And that was you at uni, in your uni days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what were some of the things that you fell into during your entire journey? Like the several, you know, because I'm sure it wasn't all perfectly smooth sailing and coincidental and saying, yeah, I got this, you know, that sort of thing. What sort of things did you have to go through that you feel, oh, had you known, you would have maybe made a slightly different decision? Almost as though you're kind of speaking, obviously, to either your younger self or anyone else out there actually watching us right now.
Do you know what's
how
interesting?
do I
Yeah.
get past this?
What's interesting is someone asked me this question and asked me the other day and said, would you change anything about your journey? And I was like, I don't think so, because, and I'll explain why. All the good and the bad that I had gone through, some of which I wish I didn't have to go through, were all orchestrated to bring me to the point that I'm at right now. And I will never be the guy that I am today and still transitioning into being if I hadn't gone through some of the stuff that I had gone through. Okay. So would I change anything? No. But that being said, there are certain experiences that I probably wouldn't want someone else to go through. And so if they can learn through me and avoid that path, then maybe great, you know? I mean, I was a black man in Britain, you know, during the times when gangs were flourishing and knife crime was a thing. And I did, you know, take part into, you know, some of that. You know, I was in a gang at some point,
you
know, on the wrong side of the law. I think I was supposed to be incarcerated like 2 to 3 times, you know, for a very, very long time. You know, I was that guy. I was the guy who would come with a hoodie,
the bandana
before COVID.
The whole shebang and the balaclava?
Yeah, bruv, like I was that guy, and you know, walking around and I probably got a knife in my pocket or two, and you know, when I'm walking through your block, you know, you're all basically holding your handbags. I was that guy. So to see me in a suit.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna pause for a second. We need a pause. So, doctor and what was it?
Lawyer.
Your parents? Doctor and lawyer parents. So I'm just trying to like have this. I'm trying to
picture it. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Doctor and lawyer parents, pastors, church parents, church background, from Zambia as well, by the way, because trust and believe, for those who are watching, my shock is not just what I've just mentioned. Zambians, we don't do stuff like that. We don't listen. There is certain things that a lot of other African people who are living in the UK have delved into, gangs included. But there's a number of things that you will never, ever even hear a Zambian getting involved in. I don't know if it's maybe the way we were brought up for the most part, but it's very, very rare. So what we're listening to right now is like, no, wait 1 second. I think I must have fallen asleep and maybe I'm hallucinating because Zambians don't. It's one of those things where, you know, like how they say certain like extreme sports, right? You know, bungee jumping, people say, no, black people don't do that, man. Zambians don't do the gangs.
No, they don't. Naturally, Zambians are peaceful.
So with such a steady background, how did you get roped into it?
I fell off. Bad influence. I had some very naughty cousins, naughty friends in school, wanting to make money quickly, and so you know. You're that African boy. I mean, it started off with being made fun of, you know, oh, you're African bottom cleaner, this and that. And so you want, I was called all sorts of African something names. And so you sort of initially you join the gang to protect yourself because you want people to fear you, but not for fear's sake, just so they don't have to bully you. And so slowly you start bullying the people who bullied you, and then you just become an outright bully because now you're just a bully. You know, when you're bullying now, now that you're a bully, hanging around with bullies, they bully you for when you don't have the latest trainers. Now you want to make sure you have the latest trainers, and how do you get the latest trainers? They show you how they do it. Now you also want to do it. Then you want to have the latest hoodie, you want to have the latest this, and it's one thing after another, and before you know it, you're so deep into the system that you don't even know how you got there. For me, my realization was when I stood in front of a judge and he could have slapped me with a 12-year sentence and he says, I'm going to give you 1 year community service, change your life around, or you're gonna find yourself back here. And I was like,
So,
hey, I'm
how did you
changing my
find
life
yourself in front of the judge? What was your crime?
Yeah, let's just say it was something bad.
It was really bad.
It was bad.
So if you were sent, if he had basically put the full force of the law, as they say,
I'll still be in prison right now. Yeah, I'll still be in
you would
prison today.
still. How long would you be serving?
12, 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you?
17, turning 18.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And
it was basically 4 months into my 18th birthday. So if they had dragged the case a bit longer,
you'd have been
then they would have tried me out as an adult, then I would have been locked in for a long time.
Wow. David, we're sitting here talking to you when you should have been a prisoner, maybe texting via a secret phone.
I swear. It's crazy.
That is really crazy. And so obviously the judge slapped you with community service. Was that what actually turned your life around to say, oh, okay, I need to get it together?
Yeah, because I figured like when I was going to court, none of my mandem, as we call them, were there. None.
And that's when you realize, right? Like, yeah, none of them honor among thieves.
Yeah, none of them came. They would always call, and because we had a code, you don't snitch, and they were more interested in me not snitching than what the outcome of my life would be.
Wow.
The only people who were there were mum and dad, as disappointed as they were. Mum, obviously, being emotional, she didn't come to the courts. She was like, no. And I think at some point, emotionally, she would say stuff like, he deserves to go into prison. He wants to be a bad boy and mess up our names and blah, blah. So she would,
let him suffer the consequences.
Say again?
I said, let him suffer the consequences.
Yeah. So, she would say stuff like that. And, when you're in that situation, you don't really want to hear it. But, I'm a grown man now, so I understand why she would say that. Then I think what touched me and kind of saved me with the judges was on the day of sentencing, or when they were about to make their final, because I went to court a few times by myself, but when they were about to make their final decision, my dad showed up, and as disappointed as he was, he sat there, and I was like, wow. So when I walked into the room, like, I was already telling my boys, man's about to go in, like, look after this, blah, blah, blah. I was doing all of these stupid things that you do. And
at 17 years old.
And my mind was being prepared to actually be in prison.
Yeah.
So I walked in there, I was just ready to hear your sentence and you're going to be in for the next 12 years. I was prepared.
Wow.
Then they saw my dad, and they asked him, who are you and why are you here? He explained. They asked him what he does. He explained that he's a doctor, because by then he was also doing his second PhD.
Wow.
Then he told them, I'm studying PhD. I'm trying to become a cardiologist and blah, blah, blah. The whole thing. So they're like, what the hell?
Exactly.
Like,
that's what I would be saying, David.
They're like, this boy he's not bad. Like, he's just an actor. Well, they didn't say that, but that's not how because his parents are sensible people, and my dad was dressed in a suit. I was still dressed like a mandem with, like, the fake suit. It was mad. So then the judge said, what did he say? He said, and this is the Caucasian white judge. He probably doesn't even believe in God. He said, there's something telling me that your life is gonna turn around, and you're gonna be something that people are gonna talk about. And so, and that thing became more apparent. Like, this is a judge I've never met in my life. He says that thing became more apparent when I met your dad. And so we're going to give you one year community, so 12 months community service.
Wow.
And if you do your community service properly, then you don't have to go to jail. But better than that, we will, when you turn 18, your entire record is going to be cleared of all the crimes that you did before then. I was like, what? So if you don't need a wake-up call, that was my wake-up call.
That would be a wake-up call.
I was like, because I knew that no matter what I would have done in life, whatever ended up becoming, whether I went to uni, blah, 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 I would always have a criminal record because of the stuff that I did as a teenager.
Yeah.
But now I have an opportunity to not just go to prison, but also have my entire record cleaned. I took it with both hands.
Wow, David.
Yeah, here I am now.
Here you are. I feel like we should have started with this part of the conversation. My goodness, that's actually so inspiring. I'm actually surprised. Obviously, you're doing filmmaking, and a lot of UK, especially Black producers, they tend to want to focus on, creating storylines and shows, kind of like Blue Story, Top Boy, that type of story, all the way to Slim Ting. What is the intent? Things like that. I'm surprised that you haven't tried to give your version of gang life, or do you feel like it's overdone?
It's overdone, overrated, and I mean, there are so many stories to tell in the world, So I didn't want to. I don't. One thing I don't want to be is a statistic or a cliche. So
right.
You're a black ex-gangster telling black gangster movies. That there's no bigger cliche than that.
Right. And so, oh my gosh, this honestly has been very enlightening, very inspiring. I've actually enjoyed having this conversation with you today, David. Thank you for giving us your perspective of the industry and your journey in the industry. I look forward to your many projects that you've got planned for the next 5 years. And I just want to quickly touch on, obviously, after you released Divorce Club, you released that over on social media. And a lot of people were kind of surprised at the fact that you released it on social media, of all places, when technically, obviously, it looks free. But like, what inspired you to release it on social media? But then later, you obviously created an app called Zizwa Plus, where you placed all the Divorce Club reunion episodes onto where people have to actually pay in order to watch that, as well as your other content that you have on there. So why did you first of all put your stuff on social media for people to just have free access to it, and then later on put it on a paid platform? And how has that affected your viewership?
So while I was in the UK, I did some branding work with a lot of the influencers. So I always knew there was money to be made from influencer work. I always knew the idea of get a company to pay something and then advertise it for them and they'll pay you. So I was always aware of that. It's something that I didn't see being done in Zambia, and I always wondered why, because it's like it's easy money. And when after this, it's like a lot of my life's solutions come out of just terrible things. I've come to realize I'm that guy. So when the what I would call the gatekeepers of the industry pretty much closed all their doors and said, no, we're not going to do it unless you do it our way, I said, all right, cool, I'm not going to do it your way, I'm going to do it my way. And I was like, we've never done this in Zambia, why don't we try it? It might work, it might not work, but let's risk, because the whole filmmaking is a risk, so let's risk it. If it works, great, we all make a lot of money and continue to make productions. If it doesn't work, we'd have learned and put that aside and try something else. Fortunately, it did work, and luckily we made money, and now it's become a business model that other companies and production houses are imitating or utilizing to make their own money. So I'm just happy and fortunate to have such a strong intuition. I think a strong intuition, where my intuition rarely leads me astray. So even with the projects that I pick and whatnot, if a project fails, it probably wasn't supposed to have been done, and I kind of forced my way through things. But most of the projects that have worked for me have been intuition based, and so I've grown and learned to trust my intuition and sort of trust the process. So whatever's supposed to happen will happen. Yeah,
that's fair enough. That is fair enough. And what about obviously Zizwa Plus? What for those who don't know about it, who'd like to know more about the streaming platform, is it
so Zizwa Plus was created again, intuition. I figured cool. I figured doing YouTube stuff is great, and putting our content on YouTube and on Facebook and blah blah on social media gets us a lot of numbers, and brands and companies will be interested in paying for that. But then I quickly also realized, if we create a business model that's purely dependent on brands and companies, it's one that will die as quickly, because then your entire year, or your sort of the money making aspect of your company is not controlled by you, but by someone who can decide to say, you know what, I'm pulling the plug. So then I was like, nope, we're not doing that again. So I was like, people like the content, if they like the content
They want to
enough
pay for it.
to be waiting up, because there were a few marketing stunts that we did while doing the Voice Cup. Sometimes we'll release an episode late and call branded technical difficulties, blah blah blah, but people will still come and watch the numbers.
So
and
wait a minute, was that on purpose?
And there will be times where we would move the episode from, because it was streaming on both YouTube and Facebook, and the reason for that was people here used to say, they'll watch stuff on YouTube, on Facebook, but they'll never watch stuff on YouTube, and
on
blah
YouTube,
blah blah.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's see, because YouTube is a lot more expensive on this side as far as bundles are concerned, internet bundles. So then I was like, if someone can buy, if someone can spend more bundles to watch our show, it means they really would pay for our show. But the only way to test and put that theory to the test is to prohibit them from seeing it on Facebook, which they deem free, and put it on the payment platforms. And our numbers were still doing fine. So I was like, okay, so it's not the platform, it's the content. And if it's the content, people will still watch it on a paid platform. So then that's when we got into a deal with Supernova, and I was like, we're going to try this. If it works, it works. I mean, so Supernova took it on. Then obviously they sort of flunked their lines. It just didn't do what it was supposed to do. Bless them, the startup company.
It didn't give what was supposed to give.
Yeah. So then what they couldn't do inspired an idea for how we could do it better. And so, I mean, like everything that we've done was basically being created through a problem. So then we created Zizzle Plus, which is our own streaming platform. And on there, people get to watch all the shows. I mean, it's not without its own faults, but it's ours. So we have time to fix it and make it better and improve on it and blah 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 blah. And then we created a new business model. So some of our shows will go on Facebook and YouTube, for the people who want to watch them. But the other shows will go, and probably the juicier ones will go on Zizzle Plus. So now we don't have to depend on sort of marketing money, that's been given to us by these firms who want to advertise on our shows. But we can actually make money from the consumers themselves, which is basically the Netflix model. And the Netflix model in a country that doesn't have enough great quality content of its own. We're onto something.
It's onto something. Yeah, so definitely. Now, congratulations on that. I obviously signed up to Zizzle Plus. I probably was one of the first.
Probably, yeah.
Probably one of the first. I'm proud of, honestly, your endeavors. The fact that you were once a gang banger, I'm going to use those terms as cheesy as they sound. I know, right?
That's what they would call it.
You're a proper mandem. I'm shooketh. I'm absolutely shooketh. And here you are sitting in office, CEO of multiple companies, and producing films and content that's actually inspiring people. You're employing people. And this is basically, it might not necessarily be a rags to riches story, but it is like your type of rags to riches story that inspires many. And maybe one day we might make a film about it. You never know.
Hopefully.
You might make a film about your journey. But thank you so much.
You should make it. You should write it. You should produce.
I can write
make a film about me.
I can
make a film about me.
Because if I let you to it, you might not want to touch on certain things, whereas I will. So
that's the thing. That's why you have to make it. But make it after I've achieved a bit more. I'm still on my journey.
Yeah, after you've kind of become what people like to. If again, I find that very cheesy. Become a legend. So what is a legend? When you become a legend, so to speak, then we're gonna make sure that we kind of put that together. But yeah, I think that kind of brings us to a close to the show. Thank you so much, David. It's been very, very insightful, and I'm hoping our viewers out there who are watching right now, you have been inspired by David Kazadi. You can go ahead and check out his content. Zizzle Plus is there. It's available, zizzleplus.app, where you can actually go ahead and stream the shows. It only costs, I think, $5 it is, right?
Yeah,
and then also, obviously, you can always subscribe to the Kazadi Films social media. They're all over YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And I think they also have a TikTok. So you can go over there and subscribe.
All social media.
All the platforms. You can subscribe there to be updated on their latest projects. And if you're an aspiring actor, there's always opportunities available. They always post their casting on there, so you can go over there and actually see if you can be part of the Kazadi family. But from myself and my special guest, David, thank you so much for joining me for Industry. This was another edition of Industry where we delved into the journey of an individual that is immersed in the entertainment industry. As for me, until next week, is take care and goodbye.
Bye.
Next time on Industry.
When I say we, because I have a twin and we used to
You're a
sing
twin?
choral music. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. Okay, to learn the church stuff took me like, I would say, a year.
Wow. A year. There's people who take years, not 1 year, like literally years to be able to learn the instrument, which means you definitely have a natural gift for it, and obviously, which is very telling.
I wouldn't say it was luck or what, but I think more than anything, it was hard work, because I went all out more than anything. I just went all out. I was like, no, this is it. I'm putting everything that I have.
You are watching TGZ TV.